BLUF Gaming here with a quick tutorial on how to land on the alien planet in Space Engineers and select a starting site. If you're new to Space Engineers and you've been having trouble with crashing on the planet, just make sure you start in a planetary lander, and then when you start falling from the sky towards the planet, just don't move your controls. Your inertial dampeners are going to make sure that you stop before you hit the ground. That's only going to happen if the center reticule is somewhere near the horizon line on your HUD. Now I prefer an external view, so hit V for view and you get an external view, and then you want to look around. You can use Alt and your mouse to look around and find a flat area like that, which is indicative of an ice lake. You want to land on the ice lake and start hovering around maybe 30 meters off the ground and start looking for different resources that will show up thanks to your ore detector. An ideal landing spot will have iron, uranium, and either silicon or nickel, but if all you can find at a single resource location is iron and uranium together, that's good enough. All the resources that you want to find are iron, uranium, nickel, silicon, silver, gold, cobalt, and magnesium. You're not going to find platinum on any of the planets. You can only find that in space on asteroids or on the moons. Now, if you're new to flying, I don't recommend approaching the lake or the ground quite like I am, using this direct path of nose forward, but just sort of ease down into it. Use your WASD Q&E to orient your ship, and then either Controller C should allow you to move down, and then Spacebar should enable you to move up. The reason you want to start on an ice lake is because the land there is perfectly flat. There's no liquid in Space Engineers, and the flat surface makes a very easy area for you to build on. Your ship has an ore detector on it, so once you get close to the surface, start flying around and look for ore deposits. The ores will show up as white indicators on your HUD, and your ore detector has a range of about 150 meters. Sometimes it will detect a little further, but the stated range is 150 meters if you look in your control panel. As you find these resource deposits, press K, go to your GPS menu, and make a new GPS marker from your current position, and then rename it to whatever the materials are that you found. You're only going to find 3 materials at any resource deposit, so you're going to need to find several of these before you know the location of all the resources available. I recommend finding all the resources available within about a 2-kilometer range of each other if possible, before you actually settle down with your ship and start building a base. That way you can scrap your ship to use in building either new ships or in building the base itself. If you settle right on top of iron and uranium, then you'll be sure to have plenty of building materials for your standard building blocks, as well as plenty of power, since you can scrap the small reactor out of this ship to power your base. So that's your bottom line up front. If you'd like to see more detail about how to land, how to select your landing spot for your first base, and how to detect all these ores, just stick around for the rest of the tutorial. BLUF Gaming here. If you're new to BLUF Gaming, BLUF stands for bottom line up front. That means I get all the important parts of the tutorial and I cram them into a short time right at the beginning of the video. That way you can get the information you need and get right back to gaming as fast as possible. If you want more detail on how I did whatever I showed in the beginning, all you have to do is stick around after that short intro and be right where we are now, and I'll go through all the details. So without further ado, I'm going to start a new game, and we're going to do a custom game with a star system start in survival. That's going to most closely mimic what you'll find on most private servers online. This gives you several different options. I've already covered in previous tutorials the planetary lander option for Earth and Mars, as well as a respawn ship. This is your space start. All these down here are other optional starts, some of which you can survive with and some you can't. Some of these you would only use if you already had an established base somewhere. So this tutorial we're covering the alien planet. And the alien planet is different than both Mars and Earth in a few ways. One similarity it has is that all of the resources you could want are available except for platinum. So don't go looking for platinum, you won't find it. Another difference is that the planetary gravity is much higher. You see here that I have 0.93 gravity and it's counting up as I lower in altitude. When you get to the surface, it will be 1.1 gravity. It has the most gravity. Now, if you're brand new to Space Engineers and you haven't seen my previous tutorials, you might be wondering, how do I not crash? Because I keep crashing in my planetary lander. You notice I haven't actually moved anything yet. That's how you don't crash. You don't move anything at all. Now, I prefer an external view, so I'm going to press V for view, and we get this third-person view here. And I like to be a bit further back, so I'm going to hold Alt and use my scroll wheel to scroll out a bit. And as you can see, I've already stopped. I'm no longer moving at all. I have 0 meters per second velocity right now. This ship uses atmospheric thrusters, so you start out on all 3 planets, you start out falling because you're in thin atmosphere, but as you go lower, as you get to a lower altitude, your thrusters work better and better, and eventually they cause you to stop. The thing aside from the thrusters that is causing you to stop are your inertial dampeners. And if you see in the bottom left, it says dampeners on and there's a Z next to it. That is a command you give to your ship or your spacesuit that says, if I'm not applying any thrust right now, I want the computer to make my ship or myself stop. If I turn it off, it no longer does that and you see it start falling again. So I'm going to turn it back on so that I can stop. And now, if you want to fly around, you can use your mouse or arrow keys to move your reticule. And as long as your reticule is close to the horizon line right there, like I have it, you should be okay. And you should be okay so far as crashing is concerned. If you point down or something like this, your thrusters may not be strong enough to keep you aloft, so be careful. Okay. So now, what we're going to do is use WASD, Q and E, and then Control in space for up and down, or C in space, depending on how your keys are bound. And we're going to start moving about, and we're going to look for a lake. Now, there's no actual water, no actual liquid water in Space Engineers. Any place where you would expect there to be liquid water, Space Engineers actually has ice instead, and that's exactly where we want to land. Now I see this area down here looks very flat, so I'm going to go down there and land on it because it should be an ice lake. Earth has blue ice lakes and the alien planet has brown ones, and those are my preferred places to start. Right now we just have atmospheric thrusters, and all they take to land is electricity. However, to get off planet, we'll need some thrusters that work outside of the atmosphere, and that will take hydrogen thrusters unless we have platinum, which this planet does not have. So the hydrogen thrusters are going to need some sort of fuel, and the fuel they get is, as the name suggests, hydrogen. We get all of our hydrogen from ice. So let's go down here to this flat area. And one nice thing about this planetary lander is that it is a large grid ship and it has an ore detector on it, which means it has some of the best ore detection capabilities in the game. All you have to do to detect ore is get within 150 meters of it. Sometimes you'll detect it before that, but if you actually look at your settings, hit K and go down to your ore detector, you'll see that it's maxed out at 150 meters range. So I'm going to go down to around 30 meters altitude over this lake. If you go down to around 20 meters or so, you'll probably be scraping your landing gear on the ground. But you want to be as close as possible so that you can detect any ore that might be around. So now I'm going to fly around this lake counterclockwise. Oh, look at that. No, clockwise. Why not? I'm going to fly around this lake clockwise and look for any indicators that there are ore nearby. The ores that are available on planets are, as I said, all of the ores except for platinum, but that means iron, uranium, ice, nickel, silicon, silver, gold, magnesium, and cobalt. You probably saw I got a little notification that there was nickel nearby, and on planets you never get just one ore in an area. Whenever you find a deposit, you usually find 3 together. So I'm going to come back over to where I saw that nickel, and here we go. We see iron, cobalt, and nickel all in the same place. Now, so I can remember where it was, I'm going to open my menu, go to the GPS list, make a new GPS marker, and name it after what was there. And I'm going to fly around and do this until I've found all of the resources that are available in the game. Once I've done that, I will choose a starting location, and a starting location is ideally right on top of one of those large deposits. That way you don't have to travel too much whenever you're trying to get all the ores you need. If I had to choose a perfect landing site, if I could just have whatever I wanted in the world, I would be looking for iron, uranium, ice, because we're on a lake, and then either nickel or silicon, all in the starting area. That's because iron is used in pretty much everything you build in this game, and it is by far the ore you'll be using the most of. Uranium is what we need for power, and while we do start with some materials to build solar power, a solar power system, in this in the inventory containers of this lander we have those materials. Solar power isn't going to be very good at getting us off planet. So I like to find uranium in my starting area, and that way we can just use reactors, and it doesn't take a lot of uranium to take you a long way. So the third material that I would like to find would be either nickel or silicon, because both of those are used in early stage components, things like motors or computers, things like that, things that you're going to need to get started. And if you're on an ice lake, you get ice as well. Now this is a silver and gold deposit. There was a third one that I saw at some point, and I'm just trying to get that to show up again. May have traveled too far away from whatever that third one was. And sometimes it's possible that you could have an ore that's just too far beneath the ground for you to detect it. It could be 200 meters below the ground, and our ore detector just isn't powerful enough to see what it is. So if I don't find another indication of an ore soon, I'm just going to mark this as a gold silver question mark and figure it out later if it's even necessary to do so. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else, so let me get right above these and make my GPS marker. Again, new from current position. Rename it to whatever you like. I prefer the full names if they will fit. Some people will use the abbreviations from the periodic table of elements, but I don't, because I can never remember the difference between magnesium and manganese, and this game has one but not the other. and typing them out is easy enough. So rather than keep you waiting, watching me fly around this lake, because it's not terribly exciting to watch, I'm going to use the magic of video editing, and I'm going to fast forward to the point where I've found all of the resources that we need. And if I don't find them all in the lake, I'll start circling the lake, and hopefully I should be able to find all of the materials we need within about 2 kilometers of each other. Okay, I got very lucky, and I was able to find all of the resources here on this lake. If we take a look at my GPS list, you see I have gold, silver, and then the question mark. I still don't know what that is. Iron, gold, uranium, iron, nickel, cobalt, silicon, uranium, and magnesium. That covers everything that's available on a planet. We have something extra there, and as you see, we do occasionally double up on some. But now that we have this, we need to choose where we're going to start. I would recommend starting on the iron, gold, and uranium, or the iron, nickel, and cobalt areas, because as I said earlier, iron and uranium, you're going to need these right off the bat. Your ship's already running low on fuel, and then iron's used in everything. And then here, nickel, we use a lot of nickel for things like motors, so we're going to need a lot of that. So you're choosing basically between traveling to go get your nickel or traveling to go get your uranium, and then of course you'll have to travel to get everything else. But I'm going to settle on top of the uranium just because I want that initial amount of power without having to fly around and carry it by hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this home, and then for this particular GPS marker, I'm going to make it always visible, so it's always on my HUD. Now you see it's over here. That's where I'll be settling. I think that one was actually just slightly off of the ice, but we'll see when we get over there. One of the benefits of settling on ice, aside from having unlimited fuel for your hydrogen thrusters right off the bat, is that it's perfectly flat, and it's the only flat area you're going to find on a planet, and that just makes building things much, much easier. Earlier when we were coming down to the surface, I mentioned that there were some differences between the alien planet Mars and Earth, and the only one I mentioned was the gravity, which we see now is 1.1 G, so it has the strongest gravity in the solar system. Other differences are that there's no breathable oxygen on the alien planet like there is on Earth, but that makes this similar to Mars. So compared with Mars, this is actually a more difficult planet because it has higher gravity and it's harder for you to get off planet and into space. However, Mars doesn't have these beautiful ice lakes. Mars has poles, so you can get all the ice you need from snow, but it's not flat like this is. So you have to chase these balls of ice that you've mined. You have to chase them all around the place as they roll around. Whereas here, they'll just sort of collect in the holes that you dig. Another difference that you'll find between this and other planets is that if your server has certain types of threats turned on, you'll have things like wolves on Earth, whereas here I believe you get spiders. And then aside from that, because of the higher gravity, this planet actually has a thicker atmosphere, which means your atmospheric thrusters are going to work at much higher altitudes. I know all of my videos on space engineers so far have been basically the same video, and that's because I wanted to have an individual landing tutorial for each planet. From here, I'll be moving on to other topics such as building bases and ships, and whatever else it is you might need to know about space engineers. If you have any requests, just let me know in the comments. Feel free to like or subscribe. I really appreciate it. You can dislike as well, obviously, but if you do that, it'll make me sad. I'll have to go out in the backyard, bury a bag of Doritos where my dog can smell them, but can't quite get to them. Thanks again for watching BLUF Gaming. Hope to see you next time.